Hello, Libertarians. Hey, Tyler. Classic gathering of Libertarians. Nobody wants to be the first to be quiet. If you've known me for very long, you know that it's usually a dangerous thing to put me in front of a microphone. Okay. So I made a commitment to my people that I would not just get in front of the mic and ad-lib, that I would prepare. Did I do that? No. I'm going to try really hard to stay on topic and not do my standard go off book and tell jokes or whatever. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Melina Baker. I think most of y'all know me. I am the chair of the Cherokee County Libertarian Party. I'm also the treasurer for the state Libertarian Party. I am the administrator, the admin for the Texas Libertarians group, which you either love me or hate me for that. Well, I don't know which. And I am, oddly enough, a candidate for the U.S. House District 32. But if a lot of you probably realize that we have several levels of candidacy in the Libertarian Party, and I'm there just to put a name on the ballot. My district is in the Dallas area. I don't live up there. But it's made me acutely aware of what voters are interested in hearing. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, because a lot of our candidates have a lot more experience at this than I do, and have a lot more invested in your campaigns. I want to start out by making a few notes. If you did not get one of these absolutely fabulous Libertarian Forum programs, I did all the folding and the printing of it. And then Anastasia did the stuff in ink. So, you know, I let her do a little bit of the work on this. So if you like this, tell her how much you like it. So I think it's a really good resource. We've left some room for you to make notes. That's John learning to play the piano. We also have some forms like this, and I would encourage you to have these in your hands so that as you think of questions, as a candidate is speaking, if you think of questions, you could actually pose these questions. You hold it up, and then we'll take it to the candidate to pose, to answer the questions during their question and answer time. I do have several of these already filled out, and they're intended for everybody, for all of the candidates. So for you candidates, I'd like to throw some stuff out for you to be thinking about. What is your stance on cannabis, and how do you feel about this movement called Cannabis Open Carry that's sparking to life? Let's see, that one's remarked. Well, let's see. All candidates, is taxation theft, and why? Bear in mind, we only have 5 minutes of question and answer time. All candidates, should you be arrested for nonviolent, victimless crimes? Again, 5-minute limit. All candidates, considering it's President's Day, how do you feel about the current U.S. president? Are you a supporter of him, or are you against his agendas? All candidates, should the war on drugs end? And finally, all candidates, what primarily makes you stand out to other Republican or Democratic candidates? And I kind of think that's the key of what we need to be thinking about as we approach the general election. We're gonna turn this over to Phil Gray, who is from right here in the East Texas, in the Jacksonville, Tyler area. He's a small business owner and property manager with a master's degree in public administration and political science. And he's been in Texas since 1973, ironically, only a short time after the Libertarian Party was begun. I've known Phil for a while now, and I didn't know some of this stuff about him. This is so cool. His hobbies include swimming, billiards, chess, and diving. You should get together with Shane and play chess. Okay. He's been a lifelong libertarian, discovering the party in 2015. He is inspired to run by his 2 grandchildren who he doesn't want to leave $20 trillion in debt with the lack of solutions from current candidates. Phil. Thank you.
Okay, don't know how to do this, forgive me. Phil Gray, as I say, I'm running for U.S. Senate. I want to pay off the national debt. I want to create millions of jobs, and I want to save y'all money. We can do this. Ted Cruz has, just in the last 2 weeks, added $300 billion to the debt for every year. I think this is unconscionable. I'm not leaving that. We are not leaving that to our grandchildren. We can pay it off. We can pay it off by helping people. If you like 80 cents a gallon fuel, you can make your own. If you like a low interest, if you got high interest debt, transfer it to the debt fund. Every penny we pay to the debt knocks it down, becomes available to loan, because Congress has already funded the existing bonds. We can do this. We can get rid of the debt. I also want to decriminalize all drugs. I want to license vendors. I want to leave it to the states to decide how that should be done. I'm sorry, I've lost my train. Okay. When you have money left over at the end of the month, what do you do with it? Most of us spend it. As you spend that money, you create jobs. You are the job creator. I want to leave more money in your pockets to spend on things that you want. After we get rid of the debt, I want to get rid of taxes. Trade, we need free passage. I want to make a deal for the undocumented community. I want them to pay 10% of their income voluntarily to the national debt. I want them to pay it on their tax return. When they are questioned by the authorities, I want them to hold it up and say, I paid, I stay. Let them come out of the shadows. Let them become job creators. Let them walk freely. Turn them into libertarians.
Very good. And how do you feel about victimless crimes, arrests for victimless crimes?
Are we talking drugs?
Well, we could be talking about drugs, prostitution, gambling.
I don't think that we ought to be locking people up. Why take them out of their job? Why take them out of production to lock them up when they just life issues they're dealing with life issues in a way that maybe we don't agree with? Let them come out. Let's help them. Let them support their habit at a manageable level.
Any other questions? All right, let's give a hand. That was Phil Gray for U.S. Senate. Invite him to come up right now. He was born and raised in Texas, currently living in Lone Oak with his wife and kids. You'll see the little ones running around, those are his. Not the little bitty one back there, she's one of ours. He's an entrepreneur with 3 small businesses who also finds time to maintain his own farm, so he understands what it means to be independent. He is a longtime activist advocating open carry and police accountability, and has recently become in politics to push for even more freedom in Texas and beyond. And I will say this, I first became familiar with who Kory was through his cop watching efforts in the Dallas area. And I don't dare to put words in his mouth, but I know that he's not afraid to back down when he thinks somebody's being treated poorly. And that's one of the things I truly admire about him. Thank you.
This is awesome. Thank you to the Cherokee County Libertarians for putting this together. I'm glad glad to be here. I was here, 7 months ago, something like that, and started this campaign.
Can I ask you to get on the mic so
Yeah,
everybody
that's
can
fine.
hear you?
That's fine. I'm tall. There we go. So I was here about 7, 8 months ago and starting this campaign, and we've been traveling all across Texas. We've been to Houston many times, Harris County down there. We've been to Abilene, Lubbock, Fort Worth, Dallas, all over East Texas, Tyler. We've been around. We've been taking this campaign very serious. One of the questions that I was asked back when I was here several months ago, actually I was asked by Anastasia, what kind of campaign was I planning to run? And I told her that I plan to run a very serious campaign, one with a very bold message, and one that would attract from all demographics, and that we, as libertarians, can get past that 5% mark and leave that behind. And we can start talking about winning elections. And I wanted to do this campaign with a bold message and in hopes that we would garnish those numbers that libertarians have never seen. And I come back now 7 months later to tell you that I want to raise that up one more notch. I've been campaigning and just bringing this bold message of freedom to people, and they're eating it up. And I think that this is what people are hungry for. And this campaign is bringing a very solid message, and we've garnished support from all aspects, whether it be people who have never voted before. We get messages all the time. Just the other day, a 62-year-old lady had messaged me and said that she had never voted before in her life, and she wanted to support me. And she told me, what do I need to do? I said, go register. She sent me a picture the next day with her voter registration card because she's registered to vote now. And so that's what this campaign is doing. We're taking people that have never voted before. We're taking Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and this very hardcore solid base of libertarians, and we're coming with a huge wave of freedom. And I truly believe I see it. I can envision it. And if I do it, if I put my hard work into it, the campaign is behind me. We as libertarians can start winning elections here in Texas. This is very serious. This is a very serious message. People just need to understand how far our message is different from the Republicans and Democrats. I think sometimes we get too scared and we water our message down. We need to stop doing that. We need to make sure our message is bold, honest, and right to the point. And I think that's how we can separate ourselves. We can start garnishing large percentage of numbers, and we can start winning elections. That's why I'm running for governor here in Texas. I want to win this election. Right now, the Democrats really don't have anybody strong, and I believe people are searching for something different than Greg Abbott, and I believe this campaign provides that message, and we're waking up people. We're getting libertarians involved. Everybody's getting involved. And we're ready to win this nomination and have this bold message of freedom on the top of the ticket. Again, thank you, Cherokee County, for putting this together. Everybody who's been a part of this, thank you so much. And we are on the hunt for delegates. So if you're in this county or in another county and you're planning on to be a delegate, please come talk to me or somebody on my campaign team. We'd love to get with you and see what we can do about getting you involved. Thank you so much.
So who's going to build the roads?
I am for bringing liberty all the way down to the individual. I don't like the federal government at all. I don't think there should even exist. I think they should just leave Texas the hell alone, and I think we need to figure out what we can do by ourselves. The federal government's out of control, but guess what? So is the state government. We need to go back all the way down to our individual selves, our individual freedom.
All right. But who would build the roads? You didn't
The same people that build them now, and we would just remove the liar and the thief, which is known as a middleman, to be government.
How do you feel about arrests for victimless crimes?
I believe that all arrest of non-violent victimless crime should be pardoned. I don't think people should be in jail for a non-violent victimless crime.
What do you consider to be a victimless crime?
If something's, if I'm not forced, I'm not, somebody's not physically hurting me, somebody's not stealing something from me, if they're not impeding on my freedom, then people should be free to do as they please.
Okay. And this is kind of a loaded question. What is your stance on cannabis, and how do you feel about this movement called Cannabis Open Carry that's sparking to life?
It's a great question. I'm totally in favor of cannabis. Obviously, I'm pretty sure I'm probably one of the biggest cannabis candidates probably Texas have seen in a long time. We have been working very hard on this cannabis movement that has come across Texas. We have just scheduled the 35th walk in Houston. This is a revolutionary movement that is sweeping across Texas. It's going to push. It's going to give what we need in the cannabis movement an extra push, and we are going to see in 2019 some of the largest amount of cannabis freedoms that we will have seen in a long time, and it's going to be because of this movement.
Any more questions for Kory? Yes, sir.
What about, would you stand up to the federal government then in instances when they're overstepping their bounds under Article 1, Section 8, and trying to tell us how to operate our schools, or telling us any other unfunded mandates or regulations, and just tell them no, unlike Greg Abbott, who says, well, I'll hire lawyers, and the federal government will get some lawyers, and we'll all go to a federal court. Would you be willing to just nullify it and say, no?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lock you up if you attempted here.
Well, they're gonna have a lot of trouble doing that because we got a lot of people that feel the same way as I do, and I believe us Texans will stand together against the federal government.
The militia is the citizen.
Absolutely.
All right, anyone else? All right.
Thank you so much.
Kory.
Appreciate it.
I'm not tall. I want to just take a second to share a story about cannabis. The Libertarian stance is that, we all know what the boilerplate stance on cannabis in the Libertarian Party. It's never been a big issue one way or the other, except that it's something where the government interferes in the individual's life. But it became really, really real to me not too long ago when a lady who I've known virtually all my life, who has suffered from fibromyalgia, who at this point in her life, in her 70-some-odd years, has been basically homebound, could barely get out of her home. And about 2 months ago, she tried cannabis. Now, she's been on every... And my daughter's fixed to make me cry. Okay, we've gone through our gubernatorial candidates. I would like to, before we go further, I'd like to introduce Bruce Quarles. He's our SD3 candidate for, SD is state senate, so he's here. He's not necessarily prepared to speak. I did kind of put him on the spot, but he's the face that we in our Senate district, which I think just about everybody here is in this Senate district, he's the face that we'll be voting for when we vote Libertarian. So come on up and let's, do you have anything you want to say?
Sure. Listening to the other candidates, it brought to mind some things that I believe in. And I'm Bruce Quarles. I was raised in Nacogdoches, graduated there. And so I spent most of my life in Senate District 3, outside of a little less than half of it, which I spent in Houston. But anyway, now I live in Livingston, Texas, and I wanted to give people another opportunity other than just voting for, there is a Democratic opponent out of Lufkin, Texas, but other than just the Republican candidate. And because I do believe in a much smaller government. I believe that there should be less laws, less regulations, less mandates, and less expenditures, because it makes all of us a lot poorer when our government is spending our money. And so the thing is, I want less government, and I appreciate what Kory was talking about as far as nullifying the federal government and stopping them from doing things, because I'd like to see legislation passed in this state as far as stopping asset forfeiture and make that prohibited by local, state, or federal agencies in this state. And if any of them from the federal government attempt to do that, lock them up. And then as far as no-knock warrants go, personally, about 15 years ago, we had about 3,000 of them a year going on across the United States. Now we have over 50,000 a year. I don't believe there should be one no-knock warrant done in the United States. If you're chasing somebody and they're a threat to somebody, you don't wait for a warrant. You follow them into a place and you get them. Most of these no-knock warrants are used for people that are not a danger to society. It's not an imminent threat to anybody, or otherwise they wouldn't wait on the warrant, but they do hurt people. And then so I think we should prohibit local, state, or federal agencies from doing that. And if a federal agency comes in here, lock them up. And then as far as the drugs, I do believe that they should be legalized. If somebody wants to work 40 hours a week and go buy dope, that's their business. They have it regulated as far as how it's manufactured or produced in any manner, and then how it's sold. That way you don't have people killing one another over it. Just like you don't see people killing somebody over a fifth of whiskey or a case of beer nowadays, since it's legal, and you don't see them dying of some horrible side effect from the alcohol due to the fact that the drugs, you'd know how they were made because they'd be regulated. And if you were getting robbed while in the procedure of buying or selling it, you pick up the phone, you call the cops, just like you do at a liquor store. And as far as guns go, I believe in constitutional carry. I carry everywhere I go, and I don't ask permission from anybody. And I think anybody that wants to do that ought to do it. and if you've been in prison and you get out, you obviously have paid your debt to society. Odds are you didn't owe them a debt, the way the laws are written today. But if you're out of prison now, I think that the people ought to be able to have all their rights that are given to them by God. They're inalienable rights. They are enumerated as far as the guns go in the Second Amendment. And so get yourself a gun, protect yourself, because when a problem arises, cops are generally at least minutes or hours away, and you need to protect yourself. So does anybody have any questions?
Well, let me pose to you some
Sure.
of these questions that we have. Let's see here. How do you feel about the current U.S. president, and are you a supporter of him, or are you against his agenda?
Well, that's a broad question, and I, just like with any individual that I know, I agree with him on some things, and I disagree with him on others. As far as asset forfeiture, of course, I'm against him on that one. As far as getting Sessions to go ahead and prosecute drugs, which are a states' rights issue, I believe that drugs should be legalized, but I think that that is up to the state. And so I disagree with him on those stands, but there are things that I do agree with him on.
Okay. And what about this? Is taxation considered theft, and why?
Yes, it is theft. It's anybody that the government's war on drugs is horrible. It steals money from people, because if you read the 8th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, it says no excessive fines or bails nor cruel or unusual punishment. There's 254 counties in the state of Texas. There's Bail Bonds Association in every county in the state of Texas, and which means we have excessive bonds. And so the thing is, even if you're an innocent person, you're given an excessive That's the reason why they have them. You're given a $100,000 bond, let's say, and you have to throw down $10,000 in cash because you're not going to get a speedy trial. Even if you got the $100,000, you don't want to tie it up. And so after you're proven that you're an innocent person, that bail bonds association, the bail bonds person that actually took the money, they're going to give some money to the sheriff that keeps arresting these people for no reason, then also to the district attorney's office for prosecuting the case, and then to legislators to pass more excessive laws. And James Madison, the architect of the U.S. Constitution, stated that when you have too numerous laws and they're so arbitrary that people don't know what they are, that you're living in tyranny. And so I could keep going on that for you, but I know you said I'm limited 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're probably close on time. All right, 4 minutes. 4 minutes left? Okay. Do you want to add to that?
No, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So as far as civil asset forfeiture goes, one of the reasons that it's so hard to fight, I'm sure you know this, and this is more for other people in the room, but one of the reasons that it's so hard to fight is that the assets that are seized are considered to be guilty until proven innocent. The dilemma has been proposed that this is a stepping stone to a reversal in how we consider people who are arrested and charged with a crime. What do you think our best method is for eliminating civil asset forfeiture before we even get to find out if that's a possibility?
Pass legislation in this state that makes it illegal for a local, state, or federal agency to participate in that. If they want to steal somebody's assets, let them file charges against the individual, and they are innocent till proven guilty, so they can still use those assets to retain counsel to prove that they are innocent. Because if you steal it prior to that, they can't hire counsel. They're going to have to take a court-appointed attorney, which means they're going to have to take a plea bargain and go to prison.
And the argument has been that the reason that they seize those assets is so that if they are charged with a crime and ultimately convicted, and say the assets that they liquidated were stolen, that those assets would not be available to then give back to the rightful owners. How would we solve that?
Like I say, I believe in passing legislation to make it illegal to do it, because I think most of them are lying. They actually use it for personal reasons. If you know the sheriffs in these counties, many of them are elected and they're fairly impoverished. By the time they get out of office, they're multimillionaires, and the same goes with the district attorney's offices.
Anybody else? Well, I'm so glad that you chose to speak. Serendipitously, 60 syllables. Serendipitously, I chose to put him at that break, and our next person on the agenda is Michael Harris, who's running for Attorney General. So I suspect he may have some views on some of the same things we were just talking about. Mr. Harris is a fourth-generation Texas who grew up in Frankston. Nice little town. He discovered libertarianism at the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, where he met and studied with Murray Rothbard, the author of the Libertarian Manifesto. He returned to Texas and graduated from SMU Law School, and the focus of his law practice has been to uphold citizens' Sixth Amendment right to counsel in state and federal courts when the government accuses them of a crime. It sounds like a continuation to me. Thank you.
You have no idea how much. Can y'all hear me okay back there? Okay. All right. Well, several of y'all have heard my 5 main point speech, and I'm quite proud of the fact that I've come out with this nice fancy campaign flyer, and I put my 5 points on the back so you can read them for yourself. And if y'all want to ask me any questions about those, but the real focus that I would like to bring and set it up so perfectly is whether or not we can have a debate about whether taxes is or is not theft, but I think definitely we can all agree asset forfeiture is legalized theft. Repeat that, it is legalized theft. And Texas, y'all will be fascinated to know that the best evidence we have is by the Institute of Justice that tracks these things as best as it possibly can. And they rate the states, they rated Texas as the 47th worst state on the issue of asset forfeiture. Now, when I started law school back in 1993, I came across a case where they took a guy's brand new Corvette because they found 0.2 of an ounce of marijuana in the trunk. And I was absolutely offended by that. I'm here to tell y'all now that that is absolutely nothing compared to what has been going on since 1995. We had a case in San Antonio where a man, aunt died in Brownsville. He took $10,000 in cash to go down to Brownsville to make funeral arrangements. He was stopped by the police. They accused him of money laundering. They took his $10,000 in cash. We had another case here in Texas where there was a guy with a rock and roll band who was traveling around raising money to start a Christian college in Burma. Police in Texas stopped him. And even though he had all kinds of evidence to show that he had gotten these charitable donations for this charity that was a full legal charity set up with the IRS, they said, we don't care. We think it's drug related. We're taking your cash. There was a county in northeast Texas where the American Civil Liberties Union proved that they were intentionally targeting Hispanic and African American drivers as they were doing nothing more than just driving through the county, taking their cash under asset forfeitures. Those are actual cases that have happened right here in Texas. And to make matters even worse, there is practically no requirements as far as reporting of what they do with the cash. We found cases where they used the money to do things like buy football tickets, paid vacations, and I am not kidding about this. There was a district attorney who used it to buy a margarita machine and alcohol. The ultimate slush fund. Now, the all-time worst case that I have encountered wasn't in Texas, it was in Massachusetts. It was a federal case. But I think it's good to bring this up just as an example of just how bad it can get. There was a guy, his family had owned a motel, the Caswell Motel case, if you want to look it up on the internet, in Massachusetts. And like I said, three generations they've owned this small motel. The local police came to him and said, we suspect that there are people selling drugs to one of your hotel rooms. Do you mind if we put it under surveillance? He said, not only do I mind, I will allow y'all to use the room next door at no expense. So he was fully cooperating with the local police in the investigation. Some DEA agent sitting in his desk in Washington, D.C. was just trolling on the internet. 2014 realized, hey, we know we've got to at least appear that we're doing something here. So they kind of did some window dressing type things, and I think they're telling me it's time for me to shut up. But I do want to kind of finish on this point here, that we did have a state senator, Connie Burton, who did try to make an effort to reform the system in Texas, that if y'all want me to go into more details, I will about that. But it was an effort that was killed by the police lobby, and no less than our beloved, glorious leader, Donald Trump, actually, you can see it on the internet, he threatened to destroy her for it. And so that's the reason why I'm really trying to focus on the issue and bring attention to the issue of asset forfeiture.
Very good. All right, anybody have questions?
Can you explain a little bit about point number 3 here, saying that the Supreme Court of the United States is not the final arbiter of what is constitutional, and what appears to be advocation that the states should come together to make a decision on what is and is not constitutional as far as federal laws go. How would that work, and how do you see that being able to be played out in a timely manner?
Well, I could talk for an entire hour on this subject, just so you know. So I'm going to try to say that, the famous case, Marbury versus Madison, it did hold that courts had the power to declare acts of the legislature unconstitutional. I'm not opposed to that. I wish they'd do it more often than they do. But Thomas Jefferson pointed out before that and after that that the states had just as much right to come together and declare acts of federal Congress unconstitutional in the nullification. And if you want to look in history, it's called the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions that he and James Madison got together on. And also, most people don't know this, but back in the days when they had this crazy idea they had to amend the Constitution to declare stuff illegal, they had alcohol prohibition. It was the states that got together, not the federal government, but the states got together and approved the 21st Amendment without federal involvement to repeal alcohol prohibition. So it has been done that states can, on their own, come together to amend the Constitution. And I think more and more states now are starting to come up with and bring back the nullification argument first put out by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. And Kory, you'll be happy to know this, but states that have legalized marijuana now, they're leading the charge now to bring back the 10th Amendment to say that the federal government can't tell us that marijuana is going to be illegal in our states. So it can be done. It has been done. And I think if we had an attorney general who actually had those views that could ultimately, I think Ron Paul showed us that Washington, D.C. is not going to change Washington, D.C. I mean, I think it is going to have to come, the change in of the federal government is going to have to come from two fronts. I think number one, it's going to have to come from the states coming together and on one end and force the federal government to change. And I think on the other end, and I was talking to Phil about this, I think ultimately foreigners are going to stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds. I think that combination of the two things is ultimately going to lead to changes. Now, obviously, I'm going to have no say in foreigners buying U.S. bonds, so I don't see much point in me going into long detail about that subject. Okay, anybody else? I see it.
I'm wondering, it said on your flyer here that you knew Murray Rothbard in college.
I did.
Just wondering what your relationship with Murray Rothbard is like.
How much detail do you want me to go into the time I have? I can tell you that I was a student at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I was a history major, and one of my professors was a victim of the political correctness movement. He wanted me to meet some of the economic students, and so I got to hanging out with some of the economic students, and they kept talking about Murray says this, Murray said this, and it's like, who's this Murray y'all talking about all the time? It's like, oh, let us introduce you to Murray Rothbard. And so I read him first because it was during the summer. I graduated in the summer, but I was getting prepared to take the law school admission test in December, so I had this like 3-month period. And so I just was fascinated by what I had read, and I couldn't wait to meet him. But I tell people that Murray Rothbard in print was a grizzly bear. Murray Rothbard in person was a teddy bear. I mean, literally, when he walked in the classroom, I thought he was the maintenance man. But he was just absolutely brilliant. He's probably the most brilliant person I've ever met in my life. And to kind of channel my inner Murray Rothbard, put my glass on top of her head and go, "It's all crap. It's all a bunch of crap." Okay, thanks for listening.
All right. A lawyer I like. All right, I think we're done with web candidates. We're down to the real deal people here. And our next candidate is Richard Carpenter. He's the candidate for the Agriculture Commissioner. He's retired military, served 11 years as an Air Force captain. He has 5 years experience working for a farmers cooperative supporting ranchers, farmers, and dairy operations. He has been married for 37 years and has 4 children, 2 of whom are also military veterans. Though this is his first time running for office, he has been a Libertarian since college. And so I'd like to welcome Richard Carpenter.
Should be a comma after retired. I'm just retired, and I was a military veteran. My father was a veteran back in the Korean conflict. I was a veteran, captain in the Air Force back in the 80s. One of my sons was an Air Force veteran in Afghanistan, Iraq. The other son, well, there's always some rebel in the family. He joined the Navy. But we're a patriotic family, you can tell. We believe in this country. We've put our lives on the line to defend this country, but I'm not in favor of a big government. I do not like wars. I don't like going to war. Sometimes you have to do that. But I'll be damned, we are still in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that just irritates the hell out of me. This campaign for the agricultural commissioner position is one of the few in Texas that requires agricultural experience to be eligible to run or to be appointed. My time with an agricultural farmers cooperative qualifies me for that. I've known about the Libertarian Party since 1974. For a long time, I've considered myself a libertarian. That's how I described myself, libertarian with a small L. But last year, my wife got tired of listening to me yell at the TV, said, why don't you go do something about it? So I decided to get politically active again after several decades. Libertarian Party was the only choice. I got into it. I said, I'll do anything to help out. When they found out I had some agricultural experience, more than 5 years worth, all of a sudden I'm being talked into running for the Ag Commissioner. I've never run for an office before. So this is going to be fun, entertaining, and I hope to spread the message of some of the issues I have that mostly are going to be agricultural issues. But I get to talk about the Libertarian Party, what liberty and freedom means to me, and how it can help the people of this state. Most of my agricultural issues are going to involve the next generation of Texans. The young people now, 20 to 30, 25 years, they are going to be in charge of this state. So we're talking about your children, your grandchildren, and those who aren't even born yet, what they're going to have to deal with in 25 years. Keep in mind, the population of Texas will almost double in 25 years. Water resources in the west half of this state are already critical. Can you imagine what it's going to be in 25 years? Especially if this global warming or this climate change. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know if it's man-made or if it's natural, but we need to plan and prepare for that time. We don't have to wait to build a salty water desalination plant over a brackish aquifer in West Texas for agricultural water use. Planning for that takes like 6 to 7 years. Why wait till the crisis hits? What I'm going to be talking about is let's plan for these things. I'm going to be talking about urban farming, not community gardens, but people giving the opportunity to do some intensive small plot farming in towns and communities and cities across this state. We've got a diverse population, diverse communities. They can do something in their own community that doesn't cost a lot of money to get involved. And they can provide healthy, nutritious food for their local communities. And the Texas Department of Agriculture can spearhead that. We can get people talking about that. It will never take the place of large-scale farming, but everything we can do will help the Texans in the next generation. My campaign is going to start in Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley. I don't know how many votes I'm going to get down there, but that area, along with the Panhandle and West Texas, is critical to agriculture for the future of Texas. So it is important to me, and that's why I'm going to be there. Thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Who's gonna pay for the desalinization unit?
That is going to be a big issue because it is expensive. Plus, you got pipelines to push that water around. The plan I've got basically involves Texans as a body reducing the expenditures of the state, reducing the expenditures of the budget, take half of that savings, put it into some trust accounts just for that purpose, and the other half give back to the people, and do that each year for 18 years. Plus a voluntary charitable foundation just to support that. But that's something we'll have to discuss in 15 to 20 years of how we're going to afford it. Because when the crisis hits and we need.
When you talk about urban farming, you're talking about vertical farming or?
Small lots, maybe 1 or 2 city lots, a house lot. And vertical, you mean by stacked beds and such? No, I'm thinking about an actual lot that people, the most equipment they need is a rototiller. The problem for any farmer is the cost of land, cost of machinery. Machinery cost is low. The land, I'm looking at a fund that will buy a city lots at tax sales, so we get them cheap, and the people basically lease that land instead of spending the money to buy it. So it's affordable for people to get into.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you.
Our time together is slowly coming to an end. I'm going to introduce to you right now Mike Wright. I've never met him until today, although I've had a couple of emails back and forth with him. He's running for railroad commissioner in Texas. He's been in Texas since 1981, and he's married to his wife Doris, with whom he has 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Graduated from West Point, so you're a military man, and served 7 years in the U.S. Army developing his leadership and problem-solving skills. Later graduating from Harvard Business School, he spent 10 years working in the oil industry, later transitioning to academia as a professor at Texas Women's University, which I have to say, I was kind of curious how you took oil field background to TWU. That seems like kind of an interesting combination, but that may be something for another day. I don't know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Richard, we got something to talk about. I'm running for Railroad Commission. I am new to the Libertarian Party. I was recruited. Somebody said, you want to run for office? I sent them my resume. They looked at it, said, we need somebody for Railroad Commission. And I agreed to run. I think the big thing, I think I'm better qualified than the person doing a job. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out they got problems. Last month, they passed 345 waivers to various regulations. They voted 3-0 on 345 and 2-1 on the other one. I'm spending my time getting to know the oil and fracking industry primarily. I'm talking to people in the oil field. And I'm waiting to get second verification. But a lot of the problems appear to be the rules were written when we did all vertical drilling. What kind of drilling do we do now? 95% of it's horizontal. So if you got different, you write the rules for this, and now you're doing this, and you spend all your time passing waivers. We just need to review all the rules and get them in a line which makes sense. Just like Richard was saying, we got a water problem. Anybody got an idea how many gallons of water a big frac job takes? 25 million gallons. If you don't drill a well right there to pump that water out, which causes subsidence problems, it also steals it from agriculture and everything else, you gotta truck it in. 25 million gallons of water is, I think I counted it up, it's about 2,500 tractor trailer loads. A lot of water. Talking to a lady who's over water recovery for a exploration and production company, and they're recycling the water. They take the water from the frac jobs, they put it on trucks and send it back. They get it cleaned up and they reuse it. Very economical. Well, it's not real economical. I've talked to her about the viability of taking pipe it back, send it back and reuse it. And she said that's the way to go in the future, but you got to get economies of scale. You can't do this with one company. So the thought is, and she agrees, we need to get the oil field companies and everybody else involved, form a cooperative, keep the damn government out of it, and let them do it. Because the day's coming, they're not going to have water to do recycling. That's just wasting water. I also think it's going to be enough you're going to need. You need to do desalinization, bring it up in pipeline. Now, we're talking about water here. We're not talking 15,000 pounds of water contaminated. Bring it up, use it for the fracking and all, and sell the rest of it to agriculture or cities or whatever. Now, I don't know the exact numbers for desalinization, but the oil company's going to be looking for places to invest their money. I mean, they spend $5, $6, $7 billion a year just looking for more oil, and they found a lot in West Texas. And, you know, so my approach is let's do something cooperatively, protect the environment, and I would bet that if I was successful, we can downsize the Railroad Commission. And by the way, we don't do anything at all with railroads. Oil and gas, pipelines, liquefied natural gas, and surface mining, the coal and uranium. Now, I get questions about my position on all kinds of things. I'm focusing on what the Railroad Commission does. I'll tell you what my position on things are, but if it doesn't affect the Railroad Commission, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm really trying to win this election, and I want to focus on my qualifications for Railroad Commission. So that's all I have. Questions? Right now, the incumbent is Christy Craddock. Her father was Speaker of the House for 15 years or so. Oh, yeah. And a long time, and he gave her $250,000 or something to start when she was first elected. And she's got some things in her background that's not positive, but I'm not getting into those. I mean, you know, if people want to find out about it, they can dig around, but I'm working on qualifications versus her qualifications.
Coming into this position, you come at a very interesting time. We, last term, had a very successful candidate that I'm sure everyone knows, Mark Miller, who did some great work for the position and for the party, getting numerous endorsements from newspapers all across the state, and he was the most endorsed candidate out of all three. Unfortunately, those endorsements, while I'm sure they helped, didn't necessarily pan out to the kind of results I think he was qualified for and should have gotten. Have you at all been in communication with his campaign?
I have talked to Mark. I've read his book. We struck some emails. I think I'll meet him next week. I think he's going to be in Austin. perfectly frank, except for what I call my analytical ability, he's focused more on the industry, and he's probably better qualified, but he didn't run again, so somebody asked me. You know, so I think he was a great guy. And you know, I hope I win this time, he wins next time. Because there's two commissioners, even if I'm elected, there's only so much you can do, because the other two are there. The big thing I've got going for me is I'm not beholden to anybody in any industry. You know, I'll be 77 when I finish. I'm going back to take care of grandkids. I'm not looking for another office. I think Rick Perry, he started out in the Railroad Commission. I think a lot of people, that's a good stepping stone. I'm not planning on taking any money from anybody except for travel expenses. I'm retired. There's a Railroad Commission office in Houston. I can go over there and spend 2 or 3 days a week going through and making sure everything's being done right. I mentioned how many waivers they gave at the meeting in January. 345. How long do you think that meeting lasted?
5 minutes.
Huh?
5 minutes.
No, 2.5 hours. Less than 30 seconds per item on the agenda. You rest assured I'll be asking questions. We're gonna spend the night probably. You can't go through 345 things and do justice to it in 2.5 hours. But if you clean up the regulations, you know, where this is what you're supposed to do, now do it. You cut down the time and you cut down a lot of staff. More questions? Now I'm gonna take the liberty, we got a lot of veterans here. I use the VA healthcare. I'm tickled pink with it. It is better than what I had in civilian life. I'm fortunate that we need to study, because they are doing a lot of what people are doing 20 years ago. They have what they call centers of excellence. If you're going to have ortho heart surgery, you're coming to Houston. If you're going to have weight loss surgery, you're going to Jackson, Mississippi. They're going to bring a lot of people in there, and they're going to do a lot of procedures, and they're going to get real good at it. If you come little town and they do one heart operation a year, your probability of being successful is a whole lot less. The other thing about the military is if you get charged with a crime and we put you in prison, you get paid until you are convicted. Big difference. If you get arrested, is there an authority in the country going to pay you while you're in jail? Not going to happen. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of other things, but I've been on 2 grand juries in Houston, Texas. When you're on a grand jury, you meet 2 times a week. You hear about 100 cases a day. So I've heard about 5,000 cases. And alcohol and drugs are 80% of them. Most of those people don't need to be in jail. They need treatment. But if you didn't have jails, a lot of people lose jobs and they lose a lot of power. So I mean, I'm all for treatment. But you know, when they come in and whatever the law is, that's what I follow. You know, I don't make it up on my own. I may be against something, but we need to change the law. But when they're in there, they caught with drugs and they test it and so forth, or they get caught drunk driving and they've got a .12, kind of hard to say there's not probable cause. So I just share that with you, and I can tell you, if it's legalized, we're going to have a problem with that guy at work. But I can tell you from experience, So, I mean, you gotta look at the whole situation, not just real narrowly. Any more questions?
I think that's it. We appreciate you being here.
Well, I appreciate you. Thanks a lot for that.
Before we get to our last candidate, I'd like to take a minute to recognize our county party. The blue shirts all around the room are Cherokee County Party members. We have Alex Baker over here, who is kind of our tech guru. We have Anastasia Wilford, who is the driving force behind this event. Y'all say thank you if you've enjoyed it. And not only is she kind of the driving force behind the county party, I may be the chair, but she's the one that's pushing my chair. And will be one day when I'm old too, I'm afraid. But she also is a driving force in the state party. When you hear somebody moving and doing something, there's usually an Anastasia Wilford behind that. We have Carter Crump and Allie Cummins back there who work tirelessly with us. And they happen to have the youngest Libertarian in the county right there. Everybody turn around and say, "Aw," because there's Carly. And then we have John Wilford over here, who is our candidate about to speak, and he's also the state chair. But we're all here together in this county. We work hard together, and we play hard together. We enjoy being Libertarians. And I will say something. Carter was kind enough to build a box back there that if you guys feel the need to help out a little bit with the cost of the room or the food or anything, we'd appreciate your donation. If you don't want to do that, we appreciate you just being here. I do want to say it takes courage to hone in on freedom and to look for freedom. By being free, we understand that we take certain risks in life. But the risks are worth the reward of not having somebody holding it over our head, that they own us in some way or another. And so we as Libertarians need to be brave together and be unified together and to be supportive together. And I think that the light that our party has will shine out to other people. And so I love all the guys that have come to speak tonight. The candidates have been awesome. Annie, you did a great job pulling this together. And now I would like to invite John Wilford, who's running for our local county clerk. And he happens to be my son-in-law. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Well, I see a lot of people from outside the county. I see some from inside the county as well. So for those of you who don't know, we have some problems in this county's government. It may surprise some of you to learn that one of our former county commissioners, who is now brave enough to run for county judge, Byron Underwood, is under investigation by the Texas Rangers for taking money from the county fund. And in no way did he feel that this was a reason not to run for a higher office. Yeah, exactly. As a judge, he gets to call who the thieves are. I will defend Byron just a little bit because I've heard two narratives around this whole situation. One narrative where Byron is this sneaky thief who is coming in, taking money from the people who have graciously paid our county in order to operate, keep county roads going and various other services. I've heard another way of spinning this story, I'll say. The other way is that the county commissioners have decided for some reason they don't like Mr. Underwood. That this is a total witch hunt. That there is no validity to it and that his due process has been violated. Well, accept whichever narrative you want. It really doesn't matter to me. Because either way, whether we accept that our county is a den of thieves or a den of liars, we got problems to fix. So, I guess the next question is, what is the county clerk going to do? I mean, you might think, why not run for county commissioner? Well, my answer is that I'm surprisingly not running to fix this problem. I'm running to enable you to fix this problem. I don't think any one person in there can fix it. I think it takes the whole group. And I think the problem that has caused this is not the actions of one man. It is the complacency of an entire organization of people. Give you an example. In about the last 6 years, the county treasurer has not released a treasurer's report. Now, that might have been a little bit of an alarm about something going on with money disappearing. We have hired the highest paid job at the county, auditor. The auditor was not catching this. And I promise you, going and having county employees pay for earth moving equipment to come to your house is not the first act of theft you do. You start with a pen. We all know this. And you move up from there. I don't think this was an isolated incident. And I don't know if the other people involved were cohorts, but I think they were at the very least incompetently complacent in their own jobs. As county clerk, I want to make sure that the people of this county have the information they need to keep a watch on their own government. There are many things we can do as a county to proactively address these issues and keep people informed without having to stay continually reactive. How many services do you pay for that don't give you a periodic newsletter update on what's going on? I'll tell you, every one of the tax services you pay for are like that. And it's something that can be done for free. It wouldn't cost the taxpayers a dime, maybe a small amount for a mass emailing system that is comparatively nothing. The county clerk is the receptionist and main hub of information to the people. Why hasn't the county clerk been yelling and screaming, also as the secretary of the commission, about why we aren't getting financial data out? That should have been just big news. It wasn't. It went under the radar until the Texas Rangers got involved. My time here is coming to a close. I hope you will consider me for county clerk, and whichever office I'm running for county clerk. And I hope that I can help bring transparency to our county. I can entertain any questions if there are. Or I can let y'all get out of here. All right, guys. Oh, yes, please.
If you win, would it affect your ability to serve as chair of architecture?
Yeah, I don't think so, because the county clerk position is in itself a paid position. I would be taking a pay cut. Some people run for financial incentive. I'm actually running myself a large demotion. But with that said, I work full-time now and attend to my duties at the state. I don't see any reason why that would be a problem. I haven't found any legal reasons why you can't do it, but I'll say this. If the reasons arose at that time, I would step down and let the state party elect a new chair and serve on as county commissioner. Sorry, county clerk.
I think you signed up for the wrong one.
I think I may have. Sorry. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out. I want to take a little liberty here and ask if our candidates could stick around afterward. I would love to see some photos of our chair with the candidates.
We need to have some pictures.
All right. Thank you.
All right, well, with that, we are dismissed. Other than, where should we gather for a picture, y'all? Okay, here's a nice flat wall.